So the first proxy war is the Korean War, which is fought from 1950 to 1953, only 5 years after the Second World War. So some general information about the US participation in the Korean War. Well, we entered to help South Korea defend against the invading North Koreans. And surprisingly, initially most Americans supported the war because they thought the war will be really short. And our ultimate goal was to stop the spread of communism in Eastern Asia. So the two sides of the war are the communist side and the democratic side. And on the communist side, we have North Korea, the Soviet Union, and the People's Republic of China. And on the democratic side, we have South Korea and USA as the main participants, and also the rest of the United Nations. So while this war only lasted for 3 years, there are still a lot of major events that led to the ultimate result. The first key event is the division of Korea. So following the Japanese surrender during the Second World War, they gave up the territories in Manchuria and Korea. And soon, communism began to spread in northern Korea. The US government, in order to counter this, proposed a plan to split Korea into two. And 5 years later, on June of 1950, the North Korean leader at the time, Kim Il-sung, decided to invade South Korea at the 38th parallel, which officially started the Korean War. And only a few months later, the South Koreans were already forced all the way down south, and they asked President Truman for help. So, on September of 1950, the US Army invaded at Incheon and officially participated in the Korean War. So soon after the US Army intervened, the South Koreans were able to fight their way up north. And on October of 1950, the US forces, with the help of South Koreans, were able to successfully capture and secure the city of Pyongyang, which was the capital of North Korea. And the US Army did not just stop there, they continued up northwards until the Chinese forces finally intervened on November of 1950. And since then, for 2 years, both sides fought many battles until they finally decided to sit down and negotiated out an agreement called the Armistice Agreement, which created the Korean Demilitarized Zone at the 38th parallel and separated Korea into two permanently. This war is only fought 5 years after the Second World War. The battle tactics in this war are very much similar to what was used in the Second World War. So on the communist side, they had the advantage of their immense amount of manpower, which they utilized to the fullest by doing a lot of night operations to avoid being detected by the US forces. And on the democratic side, with the help of the US government, the South Koreans were able to have a really modern weaponry and a superior air force that allowed them to have a lot more variations in their battle tactics. So the outcome of the war is that Korea remained split into two up until this day, and this is the first major spread of communism following the Second World War, and this is also the first proxy war fought between the two superpowers, and this marked the start of a Cold War.